Okay, good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Pieter van Nevel, consultant at Solventure, and today we will talk about the implementation of the demand planning solution in Arkieva at the Duvel Moortgat. Therefore, we invited Mieke Stuer. Mieke Stuer is Procurement and Supply Chain Manager at Duvel. Mieke, thank you for being here and welcome again.
Great pleasure for me to be here today with you.
Good. We also have a Solventure record here. Thank you all for attending this session because it's the most attendees that we've had so far. I hope some of you didn't misread the title and expect a Duvel tasting session because that's not what you're about to get in the next hour. Okay. Then let's get to the agenda. So we'll start with a short introduction about our companies. I'll start with Solventure and Mieke will continue with Duvel. Then we will mention the reasons for Duvel to invest in a demand planning solution. So what were the difficulties and the challenges at that time? Then we will discuss the methodology that we used, so the Solventure framework of demand planning, and also show you some specific examples of which tools that we applied in the Duvel setup. At the end, we will discuss the results, very important, and also the success factors that made this project a big success. Additionally, we'll talk about the next steps for Duvel, because obviously demand planning is just the beginning of the S&OP journey, and I think we will continue the collaboration in the next few years. After that, we have a Q&A session, so you will be able to ask questions to us. We'll answer them live. And after that, I would also request you to fill in a poll, or it's like a review of this webinar. Only 6 questions. It won't take that much time. So, Solventure, what do? We are experts in supply chain planning. Our vision or our mission is to turn the supply chain of our customers into a competitive edge. How do we do that? Well, we follow the vision of strategy-driven S&OP. It consists out of 6 building blocks, as you can see on this slide. So an S&OP, a good S&OP process starts with a segmentation and a product management step. And we have the demand planning, inventory planning, and supply planning steps, and at the end, an executive S&OP. We do this, or we implement this vision using a holistic approach of people, process, tool, and analytics. But what do we actually do? Well, we have a couple of products that we implement. One of them is strategic benchmarking. It's basically making the link between your business strategy and the S&OP. So we basically do 2 things. We identify the relevant financial KPIs for your organization based on the business strategy. Then we also do benchmarking exercises with your competitors in the industry to also define targets for those KPIs. It's important in your S&OP process that you then monitor these targets and follow up on them. A second product or service that we do is the Solventure Academy. That's all about training your people to increase awareness and the maturity of the S&OP process in your organization. Of course, we also implement software. We use the Arkieva One Plan solution for our S&OP implementations. It covers the full vision of Solventure, and all the modules that you can see above, the 6 building blocks, are integrated in the software suite. If you do an S&OP implementation, data is critical for these projects. So at Solventure, we detected that and we invested heavily in an Arkieva data connector. So it's software which is using standard templates to connect your ERP software with all of our applications. We also focus on the analytical part. We have a couple of PhD tracks here at Solventure. For instance, our CEO Bram de Smet did his PhD in the multi-echelon inventory optimization area. I have another colleague, Niels, who's doing advanced research on that. He's also including the lot sizing exercise in the model of Bram. On top of that, we also had a PhD pursuing leading indicator forecasting. It also resulted in an application that we implement these days. Leading indicator forecasting is all about including macroeconomic indicators or weather information in your forecasting process. So on top of looking at the historical sales. Now this is what we do. Now, what are the benefits for your organization? Well, we are all about maximizing the ROCE, so the return on capital employed. And we do that by balancing the supply chain triangle, which is about service, cost, and cash. We have a lot of proven experience. I think we can say that we serve all kind of industries. As you can see here, we serve the chemical and process industry, but also discrete and food and CPG. Or Mieke from Duvel here, she's located in the food or the FMCG industry. You can also see the Duvel sign on the slide. That's it for Solventure. I will now pass the word to Mieke.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great pleasure for me to be in the webinar with Solventure. And I want to tell you first a little bit more about Duvel Moortgat, although I think everyone knows the brewery very well. First of all, a small video that shows our most important values. So enjoy for a few seconds. As you could see, the history of Duvel is one of respect for tradition and family values. It all began in 1871 with Jan Leonard Moortgat. He started a farm brewery in Breendonk, where on this moment our headquarters is still located. In 1900, his sons Albert and Victor Moortgat joined the company. Albert was a brewer and he chose for an English ale, and that was the success factor. 23 years later, they launched for the first time the market Duvel, and in the 50s, the third generation Moortgats joined the company, and 10 years later they created the Duvel glass, just like we know it still these days, with the tilted shape. And from the 70s on, Duvel Moortgat start to an export success. First in the Netherlands and afterwards also other neighboring countries. In 2000, the fourth generation, that's the current generation, joined the business and made a resolute decision to take the company in an international direction. From then on, it's going very fast. First an expansion through geographic explanation, and then through acquisitions. And that's why now our beers are available all over the world, and we are now a family of 11 breweries. We have four breweries in four breweries in Belgium, our headquarters Duvel, and then Chouffe, the Koninck and Liefmans. We have 3 breweries located in USA, Firestone, Wokel, Boulevard and Ommegang. Also in the family, Brewery Het Ei in the Netherlands, Brewery Bernard in the Czech Republic, Del Ducato in Italy, and last year Jar Kombucha joined our group, not anymore an alcohol beer, but they produce fermented tea, so a new adventure for us to start with. I don't have to tell you that This exponential growth is a fantastic adventure, but raises also different problems. And this brings us to the next point. The reasons for Duvel to invest in demand planning. First important step in this was the creation of the supply chain department at Duvel in 2016. And yes, that's only 3 years ago. The creation of the supply chain department allows us to focus on difficulties due to the expansion of the company. I indicated 3 parameters. First, the increase of the complexity. Of course, the portfolio, because of the 11 breweries, so of course more beer brands, different beer brands. The geographic growth took with it that we are in different export countries, and every export country has its own legislation, its own obligations. So different labels for different export countries, also different outer cases, different palletization. So of course complexity. The acquisitions, for example, in Belgium, we have now 4 production sites with their own characteristics and also their own capacities and so on. Another important thing is not only the sales centralized in Belgium, but we have some sales offices in export countries together with their own distribution centers. On this moment, we have 6 in export countries. We have 1 in the Netherlands, 1 in France, UK, China, USA, and also 1 in Spain. A next difficulty we faced on is the increase of the customer expectations. Customers want a short delivery time. Most of our customers within 48 hours. The availability. Biggest part of our portfolio are make to stock items, so they have to be available, always available, and also in every amount the customer wants it on that time. A large portfolio. When we look back 20 years, we almost had only Duvel in 33 centiliter, and everyone was fine with that. But now customers we deliver a real large portfolio, different beer brands, different type of packaging. And some customers also ask for exclusivity, something special only for them, something we only make one time. And of course, that's complexity through the whole supply chain. And the last one is we are a member of the fast-moving consumer goods sector that asks for flexibility and short response time. We only can succeed in that when we have a very efficient internal communication between all our departments and the different breweries. Then next step, of course, how we're going to do this and what do we need for it. In the beginning, we had a very long list, but after prioritizing and analyzing, it was very clear. We need a better and a constant updated demand plan. So for us, demand planning as a key for supply chain. We set some goals for ourselves, and I will list them up. The first is, of course, increasing forecast accuracy. That's basic for demand planning. But for us, there is lots more in it for our company in the demand planning. We also look for a structured way to communicate between the different involved departments. Most important are sales, marketing, and production. And not only communication about our standard SKUs, but also the innovations and the promotional items we want to discuss with them. What we want to do with this is, with the discussions between the different departments, is also shield the production team from the complexity in marketing and sales, and also the vice versa. We want to shield the sales team from the complexity in our production department. So in a communication, but they don't have to take in mind which packaging where, which production line we will use for that item. And that's something typical we want to do in an S&OP process. So that's the following point, an S&OP process with a long-term visibility involved for all the departments. And the last one, a very important one, is the link with our customer servers serving our warehouse and also our inventory management. We want balanced stock levels. We want to decrease the destruction or no destruction of old beer. We want a minimum of out of stock, and we're sure that this will increase our customer satisfaction, our service level. And a very, very important point for us is avoiding the last minute firefighting, because firefighting is always an extra workload, inefficient runs, more changeover in our production, and rush orders for purchase department. So we don't want that anymore.
Yeah. Okay, I think it was clear from the beginning. There were some challenges. Question is, how did we tackle them, right? Mm-hmm. In the next section, I will talk about the methodology that we used and also the supporting toolset from Arkieva. Maybe first some background about what is demand planning, or how do we see it at Solventure. So this is the planning framework as we know it. We believe that a good demand planning process consists out of 5 steps. First step is a demand analysis, or analyzing and understanding your history. Next to that, it's also about segmentation and how can we, let's say, minimize the workload for the other 4 processes coming, which means that we have to get insights and exceptions if we have limited time available on which planning combinations do we need to focus. This is key for the other processes, as it will guide you through the planning process and show you where you have to focus on. And in the second step, we generate the statistical baseline. Statistical baseline, it's an engine. It's based on algorithms, and what you feed an algorithm, that's historical data. And that's why it's called the quantitative baseline forecast. Here we focused on getting the optimal forecast methods for all the different demand patterns, but more on that later. The third step is the collaborative demand planning part. So this is where we add the quality to the data. Here we add information that cannot be captured by an algorithm. Here we will focus on the event planning part. That's something that a computer can't foresee. The information has to come from the market or the people closest to the market. A fourth step is the performance management. It's very important, if you're doing something in a structured way, that you also have some kind of a feedback loop where you can see how you're progressing. If you're spending a lot of time on specific things, but you don't know if you're doing well or not, or you don't know how are we doing a couple months ago versus now, then you just start skipping those steps and you don't do it anymore. So it's important to keep track of how well you are doing. Key in that step is measuring the forecast accuracy. The fifth step is about the demand review meeting. So the first 4 steps serve the purpose to getting to a good demand plan. And then in the demand review meeting, you discuss the plan with all the different departments, and then you sign off the demand plan for the current cycle. You can see here that we indicated or highlighted a couple of these building blocks. In other webinars, we discussed every building block separately, but we thought for this webinar it would be interesting to show you more into detail which building blocks were very important for our project. So in the next couple minutes, I will zoom in on every red block. Let's start with the first one, which is situated in the demand analysis step. The insight and exceptions. What does it generally mean? Well, it's important to direct the user to the part of the data that is in highest need for review. Because if you allow him to zoom in on that specific subset of data, he can, or he knows that his time invested will get to the highest quality output. How do we do that? How do we help planners to dive into the correct subset of data? We could focus on a high forecast error of the past couple of months, for example. If you're forecasting badly in a couple of months, well, then you know that you have to do something. So then it's important to zoom in on these planning combinations. A traditional one, the high runners. Of course, it's always important to zoom in on your best sellers, basically. Additionally, and that's something that was very important for this project, is to zoom in on the planning combinations where we see a high deviation in statistical forecast compared with the last planning cycle. Then the third point that you see here, in every project that I do, I get the question, okay, I have 30 minutes today, where should I spend it? And that philosophy we wanted to tackle, and we wanted to help the Duvel planners in spending their time efficiently. If we look at the next slide, we see how we did it at Duvel. So that will be the case for every one of the 5 building blocks. I'll show you some more in general what the vision is of Solventure, and then how we did it at Duvel. So in this case, you can see a working document that we use at Duvel every cycle. In this document, the planner will filter on a specific market when he's doing the preparation for the demand review meeting with that market. And then that planner will get a couple of lists that will tell him, okay, you want to prepare the demand review meeting, then you have to focus on these 30 SKUs because this and that. If we zoom in on those lists, now I'm zooming in on 2 lists. This is real data, by the way. So we see that, let's take a look at the first list. This is a list where we show the user in the next 3 months, the forecast is deviating from the forecast of last month. If I say forecast, I mean statistical forecast. So that means that the engine has detected a new market trend. And this way we are communicating that to the user. You have to spend time on this because the numbers change drastically and we want you to review it. In the second list, we see we're not looking at the future, but at the past. And there we are looking at the top 15 products where the historical sales deviated the most from the forecast in those months. So if we look at the first product there, that one had the most or the biggest deviation in numbers, but next to it we also see the bias in percentage. Now it's negative, so it means that we sold less than we forecasted. If we look at the second building block that was important for Duvel, that's the optimal forecast methods. At Arkieva, we use advanced forecasting algorithms to predict specific demand patterns. And that's also the case at Duvel. We have a lot of products with a different demand pattern. We have seasonal products. We have products which sell like an average. Then we have others where we are exporting to other countries. That's more intermittent demand. So we have a lot of patterns. So we needed a big library of good algorithms to forecast these. A second point here is that Arkieva is automatically detecting and selecting the best suited algorithm for that planning combination. For me, this was one of the key benefits of this project because we only had one FTE who's doing all of this work. So we really wanted to help her in spending or making an effort where it adds value. And in this case, Arkieva is generating a baseline in 10 minutes, doing all the work itself, applying the correct algorithm on the correct data. And that's saving a lot of time. So that was key. Of course, if you're giving this amount of freedom to an engine, you need some kind of exception-based reporting to show to the planner where she still has to spend time on. And you don't want it to become a black box, so you want to be as transparent as possible as an engine and based on exception-based reporting, show where big deviations are coming from. Again, the case at Duvel, so very concrete and specific again. Two things I wanted to show you. The first thing is that we are using this forecast strategy with a competition model. Competition model meaning that we have a library of algorithms. We put them in a pool and we let Arkieva decide which algorithm to use for which demand pattern. In this case, I added a screenshot of a seasonal product. You see the blue columns are historical sales. Then the red line is the statistical forecast for the future, and it's representing the detected pattern in the future as well. You can see here in this part of the graph, these are all the algorithms that were in the pool. If you look at the bars here, that's the forecasting error of every algorithm. You can see the one with the smallest bar is on top. Well, that's the one that has been chosen by the competition model to predict the future. So it could be for another planning combination that an algorithm that's listed here was chosen, and the other way around. So that's how the competition model works. On top of that, we have the exception report, where the planner can go after the statistical forecast run, and they can just filter on, show me where my algorithm changed in comparison with last month. Then they have a list of the ones that they have to review. Very pragmatic, very easy. Then we come to the third building block that we wanted to discuss. It's situated in the collaborative demand planning phase of the planning cycle. And we wanted to talk about event planning. Duvel is an FMCG company, which means that event planning or promotion planning is a part of your planning, no matter if you like it or not. Event planning is a difficult process or planning process. There's no algorithm that can that you click on a button and it will just generate your promotional plan for the next 6 months. No, it's a process where you need a lot of stakeholders. You need a lot of input from people close to the market, which is why it's also important to distinguish day-to-day sales from promotional sales. Because if we want to separate our base forecast plan from our promotional plan, we need also to separate the historical data and let the statistical engine forecast the day-to-day sales and plan the promotional plan in a separate track. So that's what mentioned in the second point. Promotions should be planned and evaluated separately. And thirdly, if you have a promotional plan, it's also important to follow it up and to analyze the effect. If you forecasted 100 Duvel crates, you only sold 20. You have to know it in advance before you launch a new campaign. Could also be the case if you launch a promotion before you had an average day-to-day sales of 100 crates a week, and after the promotion you're selling 200 crates a week. Well, that's also very important to know because your promotion had a big effect. Now, what we did at Duvel, I think we succeeded in making sure that every stakeholder group was paying the right attention to the plan. What do I mean with that? And the salespeople who are the closest to the market, well, they are really focusing on the events and on the promotions, while our planning team is more focusing on the baseline forecast and the statistical forecast. That's very important during the monthly review meetings with every specific market. I think 3/4 of the time is spent on the events and what's in the current plan. Are we still on track, or do we need to change some promotions, etc. The other 1/4, then we discuss the focus lists, so the 2 times 15 SKUs, and then we know that we spend the time with the salespeople very efficiently because we only release the most important subset of data during those meetings. That's also one of the reasons why the sales department is really trusting the baseline forecast, because we only ask them, or you only ask them where they can add most of the value. Then the fourth building block, it's about forecast accuracy measurement. Obviously, if you're doing demand planning, forecast accuracy measurement is key. I already told before that somehow you need to know how well you are doing, or you just stop doing it. And that's the importance of measuring progress. At this project, the forecast accuracy serves two purposes. One of the purposes is the exception-based planning, and based on the forecast accuracy of the past demand planning cycles, we know where to focus on during this cycle. So we use it during the exception planning, but we also use it just by measuring how well we are doing at a more aggregate level. I think at the beer brand level then, while for the exception reporting, that's really at the detailed level. Also an important remark is choose your metrics and stick to them. There's no point in choosing different metrics every month, because then tracking your accuracy, you can't really measure the progress then. So at Duvel, how did we do it? 3 points I'd like to discuss. The exception planning based on forecast accuracy. See the insights in exceptions. That's the exception-based planning. Second one is about dashboarding. That's more at the higher level, at the beer brand level, that we measure the forecast accuracy. An important remark here is that we are measuring the forecast accuracy where we compare the historical sales with the forecast that was made 2 months in advance. Why is that important? That because at Duvel, the average production process, starting from the real beginning, from the brewing part in the tanks, it takes 6 to 8 weeks on average. So I think it's valuable for the production team that they know that the forecast 2 months in advance is quite accurate. A third point, we are also just distributing and sharing this dashboard via email to all the key stakeholders. Always love it when I come in the office on the first of the month and I see how well we did last month. And I think that's also good for everyone on this kind of projects to just follow up on how we are doing and to see where we can improve things. Then the fifth building block, demand review meeting. That's why we do all of this. The goal of a demand planning is to come to a final and important consensus demand plan. So it needs to be aligned between departments and there needs to be one set of numbers. What's important to mention here is that we have established a structured process to come to this final demand plan, and that demand plan is distributed across the organization to every department. What we also do during the SNOP process is that we focus on the key changes with the last demand plan, so of the previous cycle, when we release it to production, for example. How do we do it at Duvel? We took a screenshot of our SNOP calendar as it's built in Arkieva. As you can see, we have 3 periods here in every cycle. First period is about reviewing statistical forecast. Our cycle starts at the first of the month. There we run a new statistical forecast. Then we have on average 1 week to review it based on the exception-based reports. And then we commit the statistical forecast on the second Thursday of the month. And then actually the new period kicks off. We call it the SNOP demand review period, where we are sharing the new statistical forecast results with the sales teams. I think there are around 6 or 8 markets or sales teams at Duvel, and supply chain is organizing a meeting with each of these teams
separately,
where they then discuss the promotion plan and all of the focus lists that were created. At the end of the demand review, we will commit our final sales forecast to the working version, let's say, to the working forecast. And then we will review together with production what the key changes are with last month, so that they are also aware of what's going on in the market. And we won't discuss a couple of liters there, but that's about the biggest changes then. So that's how we do it these days at Duvel. Next section is about the results.
Yeah. I pointed up 3 significant results. We are now 8 months live with our demand planning tool, and these are the results, the most important results. First of all, we have a structured SNOP process, yes. As Peter told you just in the slide before, we have an SNOP calendar is known and followed by all our key stakeholders. Most important are the different sales departments, our production, and also our logistic department. We have every month structured meetings with a fixed agenda. Most important is, first of all, the biggest deviation in sales and consensus forecast. But then we try to focus on the innovations we launched a few months ago, but also the innovations we will launch in a few months, because that's also something Arkieva can't foresee. We need the information from our sales department and out of the market to analyze this. Also the same for the promotions. Arkieva can't help really with that. We have to discuss this with our sales department. And we decided to discuss with every sales department worldwide separately. The next is we have one demand plan stored on one central location. I know it sounds very easy, but yeah, it's a great advantage now for us to have this. We discuss with all the departments the same figures, and we look at the same shape with all the departments, from sales to production and our logistic department. And now we have monthly reviews instead of the quarterly, of even 1 yearly review. Before we had the demand planning tool, we only had one detailed review on a yearly base, because it was a financial driven process. And now every month we review it in detail with less workload, because as Peter told you, the baseline Arkieva is doing, and Arkieva shows us where we have to focus on. Arkieva does the prioritization for us. So with a minimum and workload, we can analyze and trust it. So that's one of the biggest results of our structured SNOP process after 8 months live. The other one is also one that Peter mentioned yet. We have a higher forecast accuracy 8 weeks in advance. Before, we only looked at 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in the future, because we don't have any tool, we don't have any figures to do it in another way. Now we try to keep frozen the next 6 to 8 weeks in our demand plan. And that's really going well. In the past, our sales department also were focused on the next month. They don't think about next in 3 months or in 4 months or even in 5 months. What am I going to do? What is my promo planning for Q4 in 2019? And now we have the time to focus on that. That's a great advantage now. very important for our meetings we have with our planning department, because in the past, when we say, in 2 weeks we need more volume on the Koninck, or we have a promo in 4 weeks for triple d'Anvers. The only thing we can do on that moment is firefighting, because the beer is brewed, a significant volume increase. We can't do it anymore. So panic in all the departments to find a solution, but not easy. And now we can look more in the future. So we can schedule, we can discuss about the promos we're going to do in the further months. And the next is, I mentioned a little bit in the first point, the baseline forecast comes from Arkieva. Arkieva let us see in reports where we have to look at the biggest deviations, and we can focus on promos, exceptions, innovations we do without needing more FTEs who are involved with the process.
Yeah, indeed. And also the firefighting comes back here.
That's a really important one.
I think both the first and the second result are also helping that, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, we also wanted to discuss the success factors of our project.
I think there are a lot of success factors, and we listed up 4 of them. The first one, also important there, is the time we took before we take the decision to go with Arkieva. Before we know very well what we want to do, what we want to achieve, we look very intensively at the market. What are our options? We talked with other colleagues. We followed some trainings, and then took the decision. One of the important factors to took the decision to go to start with demand planning, Arkieva and Solventure, was the cultural fit between Duvel and Solventure. We both have a just do it mentality, a pragmatic approach, and the entrepreneurship is very important for both. We just want to do it, and if we do something, we take responsibility for the actions we take. A second one, I think we mentioned a few times in our presentation, is the involvement and support of our sales. As soon as we think about a demand planning tool, we involved our sales departments. We talked with them about it. We asked them what they are looking in such a tool. We asked what are their problems, what they want to achieve, and that's, I think, the most important reason why we got a lot of support from them. So if anyone is listening from our sales departments, thank you well, guys. Then the third one, the experience and knowledge of Solventure. We don't have the knowledge completely in our brewery. And I think it's also not our core. So I think it's not necessary. Of course, we're following trainings and we discuss it, but we expect it from Solventure that they keep us up to date and show us all the different possibilities we have. And they do it in 2 ways, I think. First, the Solventure Academy, and also the community events. For me, it's always very interesting because you can you have contact with other clients. You can discuss with them what are their problems, what did they last month. It's always interesting, even if it's someone from a totally different sector or a totally different company. You always see they have the same problems.
It's always a relief, right?
Yes. And then the second thing is, of course, the process support of implementation consultant. Very important that consultant is from time to time on site, so you can discuss really personal things And the thing we found is, in our case, is Peter. He shows us different possibilities. What can we do? What are possible next steps? How can we solve some problems? And then, of course, it's up to us to go for it or not. So very important. And the last one is stick to the project plan. Project plan was made by Peter. We had a strict deadline. It was important because August 2018, then a new budget plan process start. So if we could start with it then,
we could harvest the fruits of the solution.
Yeah, indeed. And then very important for us was our demand planner, Sarah Kleis. The dedication she had for this project was fantastic. So thank you very well, Sarah.
Okay.
Next.
Good.
Yeah,
we also listed some next steps for Duvel and Solventure in general.
For us it's just a start. We are 8 months further. Difficult to have an evaluation because I think to evaluate really we need a complete cycle of 1 year. As you have seen before, lots of products have a seasonality in their forecast, so we're still waiting. We've seen the start of the season, and now it's waiting what Arkieva will tell us about the last part of the year. Next steps we see on a short or mid long term is our sales direct input in Arkieva. On this moment, we always do it in our SNOP meetings, but we want to start with an Excel plugin so they can put promotion forecast and review of their sales forecast directly in Arkieva. Advantages, I think, of course, the workload and also avoid some miscommunication in it. So. The second one is we want also to start with the inventory model. One of the goals I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation was the balanced stock levels, and to achieve that, the inventory model is very important. So that's one of the next steps. Yeah. Hopefully at the end of this year or beginning 2020. Together with that, the introduction of advanced safety stocks, of course, that's also a very important one to go for the balanced stocks. And safety stocks will be an important communication to our production planning. The next one, that's something I mentioned. We don't have only a central storage of our products, but also a distribution center in 6 other export countries. On this moment, we work with the shipping forecast. So we only look at which products, how many we sell to the different distribution centers in the 6 export countries. What we want to do is work with their sales forecast. So we want to use Arkieva to tell us more about sales to the end consumer and not only to the distribution warehouse. An important step also to balance the stock levels, not only in our central warehouse, but all over on this moment, the 7 warehouses where our products are located. Another one is the link with finance. Arkieva long-term volume forecast using as a basis for budget planning. I think the first step we did yet last year. Some of our sales department really looked at the baseline for Arkieva to start their financial plan, and hopefully we can go to a higher level in this next year. And last one is the link with long-term capacity planning. we also want to use Arkieva long-term volume forecast as an indicator for the capacity planning.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a clear
that
one.
speaks for itself. So these were the next steps for Duvel. Now the question is, what are the next steps for you, for the audience? Today the topic was demand planning. If you're interested in improving your demand planning process, in terms of forecast accuracy, for example, we have a couple of programs that can help you in achieving that. One of them is that we could, or one of our experts could give you advice and coaching on a monthly basis by analyzing your forecast and coaching you how you can do better. I'm talking about the exception planning, how you could implement it, etc. On top of that, we could also provide some operational process support. So if you don't have the resources available for the actual data crunching and coming to a good forecast, we can also help you with that. And on top of that, at the end of May, there is an accelerated day by Solventure Academy. It's not just one day, but 3 days. But one of those we will focus only on demand planning. We still have some spots available, so feel free to contact me after the webinar, and I will bring you in contact with the Academy team. Next to that, if you're interested or triggered by the leading indicator forecasting solution, we are now giving away free trials. The trial is a 6-week program where you can analyze your own data. So you can log into the system, upload your data, find out what leading indicators are good for your business, and then generate a forecast. Also, feel free to contact me after this webinar. Then we've come to the last slide. We are happy to answer some questions if you have some. You can see on the slide that on the right-hand side of the GoToWebinar, you can open the questions pane, and there you can enter a question for us, and we are happy to answer it. I think we have a question from Mathilde. The question is, what is the frequency of updating the demand plan that is stored on a central location? You want to answer that, Mieke? Yeah. Basically the process is as follows. We update the plan every Thursday, but that's really the final plan. On the frozen horizon, which was 6 to 8 weeks, we don't allow any statistical changes, but only promotional changes or really last minute changes.
Yeah, because it's important. I told about the frozen period, but yeah, as Duvel, we want to keep our flexibility, but it's very important that these are only exceptions we do. So the system allowed us to change some things in the frozen period, but only the statistical forecast change after the frozen period. Yeah.
Also, the result of the full demand planning cycle is only committed at the end of the month. So during the month, if changes are transferred to the central location, it's still based on the previous demand plan. Okay. The next question. I think someone asked about our forecasting metrics. Question was, which metrics are you using to calculate the forecast accuracy? I think we had an interesting discussion on that during the project. We are combining the MAPE and the bias. Why are we combining two metrics? Because the MAPE gives you an indication of what's the forecasting error, while the bias is showing you if you are under forecasting or over forecasting. So also showing you the direction in which the forecasting error is done. I see another question. How big is the demand planning tool? The demand planning team, considering the full scope of this solution? Maybe you can answer that.
Yeah, it's we only are with 2 persons. I mentioned Sarah, that's our demand planning, and I. So we are only with 2 for the whole portfolio. So that's why Peter also accented in the beginning, timing is very, very important, and we need a tool that helps us to prioritization.
Yeah. Also, an important remark there is that we're not forecasting at the product customer level, because that's a very detailed level. We decided at the beginning of the project to forecast on, of course, the product level, but then at an aggregation of the customer level, which we call the planning customer. This enables us to still review more or less all of the combinations in case needed. But if you're forecasting on a customer level, it's almost impossible to review
everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
See, another question about the forecast accuracy. Are you measuring it for promos separately? Yes, we are doing that. So we are keeping track of the base forecast and the promotion forecast in separate lines or versions, which enables us to analyze the accuracy also separately. We are splitting we are cleaning our historical sales out of promotions, right? So then we could, in the end, measure the forecast accuracy of both versions.
Yeah.
We still have a lot of questions left, but I suggest that we take them up offline, come to a response or an answer, and send them to you via email.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah. Also, special thanks to Mieke for joining us, and we see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.